Good evening, everyone. My name is Lindsay, and I am from Unique Baby Boutique. This is my fourth tutorial that I've made. I really enjoy doing them, so today we're going to be doing a tutorial on how to machine applique. So there are many steps to machine appliquing. It can seem a little overwhelming, but in reality, once you get the hang of it, it's bing, bang, boom. You got the steps, you can do it. I always tell my girlfriends when they ask me, how do you do that? How can you do that? I can never do that. I'm not crafty. I always tell them you never know what you can do until you try. You can fail or you can succeed, but you'll never know until you try. So try to always have a positive outlook when you start a project. I know sometimes it's hard when you're in a rush and you know you got to get things done, but if you're not in the right frame of mind, your project's going to not come out well. You need to be ready to sew and ready to go. Alright, so you're going to need, obviously, your hoop. This is where all the fun happens, right inside this little baby. Next thing you're going to need are your stabilizers. Now the two stabilizers that I use literally for every single project that I do is going to be Pelon 806 Stitch and Tear. Now you don't necessarily have to use this brand, but this is just the brand that I think works the best. I love it. It's great. The next brand that I use is going to be Sulky Sticky. And I don't know if you can see that, but it has a grid on it. Next thing you're going to need is Heat and Bond Lite. Now, there's two different types of heat and bond. There's regular heat and bond, which is a white paper with a red, where it says heat and bond in red. And then the purple one, where it says heat and bond light, and that's purple. The light is better for appliquing. So, your next step is going to be to pick out your coordinating fabrics for your project. The project that I'm choosing is going to be the Incredible Hulk. I am also adding a coordinating number to match. So when you applique, you almost never want to use just plain fabric because it will tear, it will separate from the satin stitch. You won't be able to have a clean, smooth applique. When you first start, you know, it'll be trial and error of what works for you and what doesn't. But this is what, over a few years of trial and error, this is what I figured out works the best. So you're going to get your Heat and Bond Light and you're going to iron it on to the back of your fabric. So say, you know, I previously ironed it on to save time. So you're going to cut it to size and then you're going to iron it on. From that point on, you are going to take your shirt and you can either hoop or float it. Floating is when you hoop your stabilizers and you float the shirt literally on top of the hoop. You can hear my daughter in the background. Hooping is when you take the shirt and you literally hoop the whole thing. I personally don't like hooping. I float everything I do. I made a previous tutorial on floating. So if you're interested in learning how to float, I would definitely watch that tutorial. I'm actually gonna float this shirt really quick, but I'm gonna time lapse it up for you guys. So I'll be back in a couple minutes with that. Alright, now that I got my shirt hooped, I would like to talk about some other materials that you're going to need. You're going to want to have coordinating thread colors for your fabric. So most of the time, like 99% of the time, I use Floriani thread. I love it. I've been using it since I started embroidering. I think it works the best. not to say that, you know, say you like sulky thread. I also use a lot of sulky thread. But you just have to figure out what works best for you. I don't know if you can tell, but it's really, really shiny. It's beautiful. I also really like Amon thread. It's a nice accord. It's almost just as shiny, but I feel like Floriani has a little bit more of a sheen. So these are going to be the thread colors that I'm going to be using today. Here are my coordinating fabrics. Put those in front like that. Okay. Then you are going to need scissors. You're going to need a good pair of embroidery scissors. I have been using Kai 4-inch curved for the past 4 years. Someone recommended them to me because I also make felties for hair bows. And someone recommended them for me for felties. And I was like, okay, great, I'll try anything because, you know, my scissors are so dull. So they're $15, free shipping. And I ended up buying 2 pairs that same day. And I haven't looked back since. And that was in 2013 was the first pair of scissors that Kai scissors that I bought. They're Kai 4-inch curved. I'll post the link to the materials that I use if you decide that you like the way that I applique. Excuse me. I also wanted to show you this scrap piece of fabric. It has the heat and bond light already on there. This is what it looks like when you peel it off. But I have a tub full of applique scraps. I never throw away a piece that's big enough for like a piece of hair or, you know, shorts or a shirt or a face. I try to save every piece that I possibly can because you're just, in my opinion, you're throwing away money when you're throwing this away. This is a perfectly good piece of fabric with that heat and bond light already ironed on. So, all right, let's get to the applique. If you have any questions also, please feel free to ask me. I love questions. I'll try to answer as best as I can. So I'm going to take you guys step by step on the machine applique. All right. So that first stitch is called the placement stitch. That lets you know where you need to place the fabric. The next stitch is going to be called your tack down stitch. Okay, so it's a little hard to see, I know, because I did white on white. I should have done black and then white, but if you can see that, I think you barely can. You can see the outline of the 3. The next one you'll be able to really see it. All right, so can you see that? That is called a tack down. All right, now let's do the satin. Now, before the satin stitch, you have to trim around. Let me see if I can move this down. My battery's gonna die. Properly charge it. So you want to trim. This is the importance of a good pair of scissors. You want to make sure to trim as close as you can without actually cutting the stitches. Now I'm going to be a little bit faster at this than someone else who is just beginning, but it's the same idea. You just have to take your time and try not to cut the stitches, because if you do, some designs, when they do a satin stitch, they don't outline the satin stitch, they just go right to it, and you'll have fabric separation. I'm not sure if I mentioned also that a fresh needle will completely change your project. You definitely want to work with a fresh needle when you've been on your embroidery machine all day, or you've been using it pretty consistently for the past few days. I think they say each needle is good for about 8 hours, but I think that also depends on the amount of work that you've been using it in that 8 hours. So I do a lot of in the hoop projects, like I make a lot of kids masks and things like that. If I've been making those for a day or so, I change my needle if I'm going to do a shirt, because it will completely change the way that your shirt looks. So I'm going to change my thread to black. I'm actually going to turn off the camera, and then I'll come back to show you what it looks like afterwards. Alright, so here is the finished shirt. I hope the video was informative. I'm going to add a couple extra slides. I took some pictures of another shirt that I made an applique on. So hopefully I helped you guys out. If you have any other questions, please let me know. I would be happy to assist. I hope you guys have a great day, and again, here is our shirt.